Like and subscribe.
Brick is alive. Not convinced? Well, what if I did this? I'm gonna do a...
Whoa, the animation. This was made like a month ago. Okay. I haven't watched this.
Backflip! That's gonna look so cool, Brick.
I haven't seen this guy in ages. Well, I haven't watched this stuff in ages.
What are you boys
Oh,
doing?
what the hell?
I think he's gonna do a backflip, Grandma!
Bro, what happened to this guy? Why is he so cursed?
Are you convinced now? Did the brick feel more alive? I mean, sure, it's still a brick that can't move on its own, but maybe because I put googly eyes on it and gave it a family, you can connect with this brick, and it made you feel...
The animation is crazy. What the hell? It's different from like before. I think I remember it was like it was not animated like this.
Emotions. Convincing you that something inanimate is animate is the main goal of the animate-or. They're nothing more than deranged frauds. For the last century, animators have innovated new techniques and styles to this medium, taking it from a spinning wheel that doesn't even use electricity to Spider-Verse. And today, I'm going to talk about all the processes and innovations that have brought the medium of animation to right now. But first, let's go all the way back to the beginning of film, when it was all black and white and people had to put up text whenever they talked. Early on, filmmakers discovered a very simple trick to make anything appear alive in front of a camera. And that simple trick was called
stop motion.
You're filming something and then stop the camera and
I remember doing this in primary, man. We did like little claymation stuff. I enjoyed it, man. Dude, I did a lot of artsy stuff. I just never kept up with. Damn. I ever think like sometimes like you kind of wish you could restart.
and then move the thing slightly, capture a new image, move the thing again, and continue to do that a tedious amount of times. On the film, that thing now magically looked like it moved on its own. And with this technique, you can make literally anything appear to be moving.
Yeah.
Anything. But some filmmakers took this art form to an extreme level and created whole characters.
Shaun the Sheep. Gromit.
Out of clay and a posable metal wire system called an armature. Now, animators can sculpt unique characters that bend and pose in much more believable ways. With stop motion, you don't need to hire a real dinosaur or giant monkey to make a movie about a dinosaur or giant monkey. I'm sorry you didn't get the job, Phil. You know, I just had a crazy idea. What if we made our entire puppet's head interchangeable? Now they can make any facial expression and mouth shape possible. We will have to sculpt out hundreds of different heads though, but come on, that'll be fun. That's why we're extreme, baby! Stop motion movies are still being made and enjoyed to this day. And while new technology does help
Caroline's really good, man. When I watched it when I was younger, I was like freaked out by it. It freaked me the F out. But the later years on my like rewatches, it was really cool.
The overall process easier, animators are still using the same techniques that
this like the Monster House thing, right?
Were used on King Kong back in the 1920s, where they carefully pose out a character's every movement frame by frame, in order. Stop motion is a medium that I can't even begin to understand how they do, let alone make it look good, you know? Having a stop motion character in gravity-defying poses, making hundreds of different faces, is done solely to make the character feel more alive. And sometimes to help sell the realism, animators will mimic quirks that only happen in live-action films.
Yeah.
I always chuckle when I see a lens flare in an animated movie, because like, where did you come from? There's not even a camera lens. Unlike me, though, who's always got a camera rolling. Hey, how's it going? Uh-oh. Oh, no! Did you catch that? Did you see the...
Oh, yeah, okay.
Lizard eating a bug. Oh, we got him. Now let's rewind the clip and pause right here. This lizard moves so fast that the camera can't even capture its movements correctly, and he transmogrifies into an amorphic blob that barely even resembles a lizard. But do not.
Yeah, I think this goes into like when animating. There's those like in between frames that like weird. Let's just say. And one thing that comes to mind is Naruto. Naruto, the amount of memes that came out on like the pain fight was crazy. That was funny.
Fret, dear viewer. This is called motion blur, and it's absolutely natural. Fast-moving objects are hard to see in real life anyway, so this blurry blob only showing up for one frame actually helps sell the idea that this little guy
Yeah,
is
it
moving
moved.
quickly.
Yeah.
If you watch any movie frame by frame, you'll find motion blur everywhere, and you won't even notice. So how do animators who are taking hundreds of still photos handle this naturally occurring phenomenon with things in motion? Easy, they'll draw smear. Animators draw their own blurry blob
I'm guessing those parts got cut out because of copyright.
frame to mimic fast movements. Bodies can stretch, arms can multiply. Basically, we can sneak in nightmares as long as it's only shown for one frame. Smears, while being very fun to draw, can look very weird and goofy on their own. But in the
Yeah.
context of the whole shot, you barely even notice they're there. Okay, maybe now you'll notice them, but that's only because I pointed them out. And since animators are bad boys and don't play by the rules, they can make smears out of anything. Even in stop motion, we can sculpt a physical smear frame like how they did in Leica's Paranorman, which if you haven't seen, is going to be your new favorite movie. Smear frames can be used anytime, anywhere. Unless you were an animator in the 1920s and 30s and you didn't know about them back then. In that case, you would have been animating something called... In the 1920s and 30s,
Yeah,
animating
what?
something called...
Rubber hose. Okay.
In the 1920s and 30s, animators were still figuring out some core principles of animation. Turns out there's 12 of them. Smear frames were used sparingly during this time, with animators usually only drawing characters with multiple limbs to show fast movements. The stretchy, wacky, and spiritually ascending smears that you all know and love weren't really used until the 1940s. Rubber hose
Okay.
characters have noodly, almost hose-like limbs that bend in all sorts of anatomically defying ways. Look at Mickey Mouse's noodle arms that I can now legally show you. The reason characters look like this is because drawing noodle arms and not worrying about anatomy.
Oh yeah, it became like a public domain, right? And that's why there was that Mickey Mouse game that was advertised, like just before it became public. That was
It's easier
really
to
funny.
draw. But like, just because something has noodle arms doesn't mean it's bad, you guys. What these animators were able to accomplish with the technology, if you could even call it that, is nothing short of dark magic. And the very same studio that made Steamboat Willie wanted to push the envelope and show the world that animation could be more. It doesn't just have to be noodly characters with Pac-Man eyes. They were going to animate a realistic woman with proportional arms that don't move in weird, exaggerated ways. And oh god, her
Yeah.
noodle arms are moving in weird, exaggerated ways. In 1934, Disney released a short called The Goddess of Spring, being their first attempt at animating a character with what was supposed to have real human anatomy. They still had a lot to learn, obviously. Now, animating a quote-unquote anatomically correct human is actually a much harder task than you might realize. And that's because
Very.
of the uncanny valley. Get more
gotta
and more
stylize it,
human
man.
characteristics, we hit an interesting point right here when something looks almost like a human, but is just a little off. Our pattern recognition brains start setting off alarm bells and go, ugh, something is definitely wrong with that almost human. I am entering fight or flight right now. So if you're trying to make something look as close to a human as possible, but are just a
What the hell is this? Why is it so cursed?
tiny bit off, everything crumbles. The Goddess of Spring was still good practice for Disney because only 3 years later, they released the world's first fully animated feature film, Snow White. Can you really blame Disney for going 6 times over?
Ah, damn, Snow White. Holy heck. Rest in peace, man. That 2025 movie.
Budget to make this movie? I mean, just look at how these human characters are moving. 10 years before Snow White, animated humans looked like this. So going from this to this in only 10 years? How? I can't get over how real these human characters look sometimes.
They, I'm assuming they outright. And why is he double cheeked up? What the hell is? Why is he so cursed? I don't remember him being this cursed, man. But I'm pretty sure they filmed shots and then they kind of animated around it, right?
Almost too real. Well, I think you're old enough to learn about the dangers of
Rotoscoping
rotoscoping is the process of taking real-life footage and then manually tracing over every frame, resulting in an animation with unreal levels of realism. And I say unreal derogatorily. You're basically slapping a cartoon filter over live-action footage, but instead of simply slapping, you're spending multiple hours doing mindless and tedious drawing. Rotoscoping is not the same as filming a human actor and then later referencing that footage, like what Disney did for Sleeping Beauty or Alice in Wonderland or any movie ever, because animators use references all the time. People had figured out how to rotoscope.
You have to use references.
Other people long before Snow White. So of course Disney, who was trying to convey real human movement, rotoscoped some shots. The problem with rotoscoping is that we start to sneak our way back to the bottom of the uncanny valley. Animated characters often do and should break the laws of physics. They can squash and stretch into weird proportions and be drawn in unique and interesting poses. And look,
They have to, because in front of a camera you have like perspective, but if you're drawing 2D and it's flat, you don't have perspective. So you gotta draw that in by drawing certain limbs bigger than the other. You can look at that in Levi's scene with Kenny in Attack on Titan.
Snow White is still a masterpiece of a movie. The rotoscoping is fine, you barely notice it, it's good, it's a good movie, and it made Disney a lot of money. Also, how did Walt animate these shots of things reflecting in the water in 1937? What, did they put special glass over paintings to make it look distorted or something? Who would be crazy enough to do that? If you made a whole movie entirely rotoscoped, what you end up with is Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings. Notice anything off about these characters' movements? Look at how Gandalf moved just a year ago in The Hobbit. Now, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. Almost every shot in this movie was rotoscoped, and the shots that weren't used live-action footage with a filter over it. I'm not saying that rotoscoping is bad. You just have to use it correctly. A character switching from traditionally animated to rotoscoped is incredibly funny, and always will be. The YouTuber Joel Javier makes very entertaining rotoscope skits that feel like a fever dream, and I mean that underogatorily. And a lot of music videos get away with rotoscoping because, admittedly, rotoscoping is a very cool visual. Now, videos get away with rotoscoping.
This one is so good, man. Amazing video, amazing song. This one too as well.
Because admittedly, rotoscoping is a very cool visual. Now, I wish I could say the first Lord of the Rings movie was a hidden animation gem, but I don't know, it's not on my top 10, I'm sorry. It probably made a lot of nerds in the 70s happy, but thankfully The Lord of the Rings has been adapted into many other forms of media, like video games, Magic the Gathering cards, and anime. Anime? They're making a Lord of the Rings anime? They're making a Lord of the Rings. You thought Hollywood, California was the only place in the world making moving pictures? Japan's been making their own moving pictures too. And
everyone's slowly moving to anime now because it's popular. Castlevania has an anime-ish style. There's a lot of influences in anime currently, and people are moving towards it. Because it sells. It sells. It sells on Netflix like a lot. A lot of the series are getting licensed to Netflix, and people are catching on. Hollywood is catching on.
Some of them are moving drawings. There are entire college courses on the history of anime, but you're not paying me tuition, so we're gonna have to skip over a couple things. A lot of early anime is now lost media because cinemas didn't preserve film back then, and an earthquake destroyed many studios in 1923. Some Japanese animators created shorts out of paper cutouts because buying thousands of celluloid sheets was too expensive, and they had some very unique character designs. And some Japanese animators took inspiration from Disney and made shorts that looked very similar to America's rubber hose characters. Then by the 1940s, some major world events happened that got most of the world involved, and
Yeah. Going from undying loyal to, hey, we make cringe anime. I'm kidding.
both American and
Love
Japanese
Japan.
animation studios were affected. But after all that, in 1948, one studio called Japan Animated Films, later bought out by Toei Animation, set out to be the
Toei? I think that's the first time I heard someone pronounce Toei. Toei. I'm sorry, it's. Wait. No. Don't let him shake you. It's Toei. Don't let him shake you on this. It's Toei.
Disney of the East, and they made cartoons about magical schoolgirls, and are still in business to this day and made some other less popular shows. One animator who quit working at Toei created his own company and made an
I can't.
anime based off his comic.
It's like. Usually I don't care about people pronouncing stuff, but I've only heard people pronounce it Toei, and this is throwing me off that he's saying Toei. I think this is the first time I'm hearing someone say Toei. I've never heard this pronunciation ever.
About a robot boy. Hey, I kind of like that art style of drawing humans with big expressive eyes. Let's do more of that. That same year, another studio made an anime about humans controlling giant robots. I wonder if that's going to inspire a whole new genre. And this
Nice. And I don't like the genre at all. Not one bit.
guy was commissioned by American studios to make stop-motion Christmas movies like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Meaning Rudolph is anime. Nani? By the 1960s, Japanese shows started airing on televisions all across the globe, and they continued to make unique and interesting stories with amazing animations that were beloved by billions of people and grew into extremely profitable franchises. Like, I'm talking the most profitable franchise. By the 1970s, Disney was still very much the animated movie gold standard, making big budgeted movies with family-friendly values. Which is fine to do, kids love bright colors and talking animals that only cartoons can offer, but some studios realized that animation was a medium, not a genre, and made animated movies exclusively for adults. That's part of the reason why the first Lord of the Rings movie was entirely rotoscoped. It wasn't trying to be cartoony and over the top. It was trying to be real and gritty. Animation could be anything for anyone of any age.
That's why I love
But
it, man.
really, if you
Animations.
think about it, there hadn't been a new way of showing people moving drawings since those very early days of black and white stop motion. In stop motion, you take a picture, move a figure, take a picture, move a figure. In cell animation, you take a picture, move a cell, take a picture, move a cell. Everything's just been a series of pictures moved manually in front of a camera this whole time? Always has been.
You've got mail.
New
Huh.
animations
It
just
says
dropped.
the entire animation and film industry is about to be flipped onto its head forever and ever. Yeah, right. I'm sure this whole computer thing.
Nah, it is not the AI thing, right? When he said that, all I'm thinking of what Corridor Digital did.
Is just
The
ever increasing advancements of technology, we were able to achieve increasingly advanced achievements, like putting a guy on the moon and drawing silly little cartoons more efficiently. Gone are the days of having to physically draw everything out on paper and underpay a team of hundreds of pretty girls to hand paint every frame. Now we can use this fancy new computer to render everything out for us. All we have to do is create a real-life mold of our real-life human hand, then draw 350 triangles onto that hand, then manually measure out the X, Y, and Z coordinates of 800 different data points. No, come on, this is gonna be so much faster. Put that pencil down. Now we just program in a couple of keyframes and we get Huh. We still don't have the processing power to render everything out. Oh, I know. We'll just point this long exposure camera at the computer screen. Get these art supplies out of here. This is the future. And when everything's finished rendering, we'll get this. A whole human hand moving on its own without having to
CG.
draw a single frame. This process is exactly what Utah University student Ed Catmull did in 1972. And while it might not have been more efficient than drawing everything out by hand, it showed
Good
that
one.
computers were capable of rendering out three-dimensional animations. This was made after we landed a man on the moon, by the way, so don't tell me this was CGI. As the computer's processing power grew exponentially, more and more filmmakers started seeing the benefits of using
Yeah.
computer-generated images.
People about like the conspiracy of the moon landing, bro. But hey, they can explain that as well. Like, obviously, the government has better technology than what is available to the public, so they would have had CGI for 20 years before that, or some dumbass reason like that.
Images in movies. A decade after Catmull digitized his hand, films like Tron showcased characters racing on mind-boggling computer-generated light cycles. This might look, bad by today's
This looks horrible. This looks horrible. But this is, at the time, this was like Avatar levels of like ingenuity. Like not Avatar the Last Airbender, the Avatar the alien movie.
standards, but these graphics were something that audiences had never seen before. Plus, the movie takes place inside of a computer, so this is probably what people thought the insides of a computer looked like anyways. At the time, computers did a great job at creating rigid geometric shapes, and animators used that to their advantage. Characters would still have to be animated traditionally on cells, but objects that weren't going to change shape, like black cauldrons, could now
Yeah.
magically fly in circles around our characters. Disney really
was a good
showed off
movie,
the computer's
Black
rendering power during the climax of The Great Mouse Detective, when these two rodents fought each other inside a clock tower and all the spinning gears were generated by a computer. Animators can now make any complex shape move in a three-dimensional space without having to draw a single frame. I mean, except for the characters, they still very much had to draw
What
those.
the
Computer
hell?
graphics were here to stay as Disney integrated more of them into movies like these Cars in Oliver and Company or Eric's ship in The Little Mermaid, and then they stopped using cells entirely. Starting with The Rescuers Down Under.
Yeah, sadly, man. Sadly, they just stopped and then just started using 3D, like, which makes sense. I mean, I don't know what's like cringy, like knowing that all of it's CG, but or like seeing a movie and knowing which ones are which like part of the scene is hand drawn and which isn't, like, which it looks jarring. Like, you see some of these old animated movies and you see like the CG objects in the foreground and the background, and then the characters are like all cells. I don't know which one I hate more, but I don't know. I enjoy hand drawing.
Disney no
Hand-drawn
longer
stuff
used
is
cells and made movies
awesome.
entirely digitally with a program called CAPS. So if you ever wanted to own a cell of Joanna the Lizard eating an egg, that's too bad because they don't exist. Which fucking sucks because Joanna was the best goddamn lizard Disney ever made. Don't touch me! TV shows and anime still use cells till about the year 2000-ish, but eventually everyone switched to digital. Now to color a frame, all you had to do was... So computers were great at making rigid, non-flexible shapes, but has anyone ever tried to make... A group of computer scientists who are working for a small indie director named George Lucas
Pixar,
were
right?
taking this art form to an extreme level and created whole characters completely generated by a computer.
It's just a
Then
style
a
of
small
Pixar.
entrepreneur named Steve Jobs hired those computer scientists and made his own company, Pixar. Yes, Steve Jobs was one of the
Wait.
founders
That's crazy.
of Pixar, and he originally created the company to sell a high-end computer powerful enough to render 3D animations. But no one bought the computer because it cost $135,000. So the team scrapped the computer selling idea and just stuck with making computer-generated cartoons. But they soon discovered a unique problem. The computer had a hard time getting textures right.
Imagine paying that much on that and then seeing the computing power now compared to then. Oh my god. It's like paying for a pizza with like 20,000 Bitcoin, right?
And everything, including
It would
babies,
do such
ended
a
up
thing.
looking like it was made out of
Oh my
plastic.
god.
So the team's clever work around this dilemma was to make a movie with the entire cast of characters actually made out of plastic. Or ants. You know, people don't know what ants are supposed to look like. It's fine.
The ants did look crazy in Ants, but I enjoyed that movie.
Pixar continued to develop new processes to get the computer to generate unique textures and lighting. Like,
wait, was it Ants? Did they make Ants? Because I think of ants when I think of like plastic characters. Let me Google it. Ants with a Z, right? 1998. The year I was born. DreamWorks. That was DreamWorks. Okay, so it was just Bug's Life then. He was talking about.
simulating human hair or fur, or lighting things in such a way to make everything appear underwater. No other studio was pioneering
Nemo.
computer-generated images like Pixar was. And then in 2006, Disney bought Pixar. But I don't think Steve was too upset because 1 year later, he achieved his dream of selling a high-end computer. This time being a little more affordable. A little. Now, I want to squash any misconception that computers do all the animating. Animators still have to manually pose a character.
Dude, I remember animating like stick fights in secondary school. Probably middle school for you Americans. Yeah, man. Dude, you could animate it crappy, or you can animate it like really well by doing as many tiny movements as possible. And that's just stick figures, man. Imagine like the 3D, like the whole thing. You could twist your hand this way and turn the fingers this way. Bro, that's a lot, man. That's a lot of work.
Character's body and facial expression off of a character's build a complex system of nodes
these, oh my god, these jump scares are
and bones that let them
too much,
manually
man. Too
pose a
much.
character into any position possible. It's kind of like a digital stop motion puppet or an actual
pretty
puppet
much.
without any of the strings.
Damn. Have we advanced at all? We just have the technology to make it differently, but we're making the same stuff the same way. That the outcome and the journey is roughly the same. It's just got a different coat on it.
All CG characters are just their own complicated version of Pinocchio. Using character rigs is really the only way of animating things in 3 dimensions. But it's not like we can use rigs in 2D animation. Here in the second dimension, we don't have a fancy Z-axis. 2D animation can only be done by hand drawing 24 new images every second. Except we don't, I lied. Even all the way back when characters were animated with paper and cells, animators wouldn't draw a whole new frame every frame. Usually they would animate pieces of a character and paint each piece on its own cell. You remember Robin, they only drew 1 body and 5 different heads. But because cells are a physical object that get harder to handle the more you have, animators could only break a character up into 2 or 3 different pieces. But now, thanks to the computer, we can break up a character into as many pieces as we'd like 4, or 5, or 173.
Jesus. I like how the liberal use of Mickey Mouse because he is public domain
Hey,
now,
have you ever played around with the free and
which is crazy to think about that it's been there a whole childhood and now it's free to the public.
revolutionary animation software Pivot Stick Figure Animator?
Bro, this was it. This is what we used. Bro, this is giving me back memories. I used to spend so much time in middle school using this, man.
If you're the type of person that says, "Oh, I suck at drawing. I can't even draw stick figures," then you're gonna love this program. On Pivot, you're given a pre-made stick figure or horse that have these joints that can be
Yeah.
posed however you like. Each of these stick figures' limbs are just individual pieces that are connected in such a way that make it
Dude, I used to make it do little dances, do fights, bro. Pivot. Oh my god, this is.
look like a stick figure. So to make these animations, we're not really drawing anything, we're just manually posing out a character like a digital puppeteer. I wasn't saying you could make a rig out of 173 pieces just to be funny, because that's how many pieces I'm made out of. That's right, me! Even I'm a rig! And can I tell you a secret? Most TV shows use rigs too. Of course, hand-drawn traditional animation is still used to make these shows. It's not a lost art form or anything. But
Yeah.
rigs are super useful at making still pretty high quality levels of animation, but at a much cheaper cost.
Whoa. What is this in the top right?
And as we all know, TV animation has to create
What show
more
is that?
animation per budget. But maybe rig animation still isn't as cost effective as you'd like. And maybe you're not a fan of the complicated puppet look and you want something that looks more human. Well, there's one more animation
Mocap.
process we can try called motion. Actor inside one of these dorky ping pong suits, a computer can pinpoint and record that actor's exact movements. Now we can take those movements, slap a cartoon
That is
character's model
Wait, there's no way they did it for the.
over it,
That's the-
and we get an animation that looks like shit. Motion capture is the rotoscoping of
Yeah, but it's mostly. I think it's like they take the motion that's captured and then they tweak it right a shit ton because it's jarring. It's a bit like if you play it's not even a game, VR chat and you see people like with motion capture and their leg like freaks out. Fillion, let me just say, Fillion, my people who watch me, you guys see me watch Fillion, but Fillion's like motion capture. You know how it freaks out every now and then. Yeah, it's a bit different with this proper like motion capture because Code Miko has like a whole motion capture thing and it's calibrated properly and stuff, but they're still tweaking and shit.
3D animation. It cuts costs, but the results are too human, and we're back at the bottom of the uncanny valley. That's why
Yeah.
the kids from the Polar Express look so nightmarish, because they are following the exact movement. The kids from the Polar Express look so human, and we're back at the
I still think this was a marketing ploy. Sonic the Hedgehog. I still think this was just a lie. They lied to us. They made that shitty trailer on purpose. They delayed it on purpose and then came out. I don't believe they redid the whole fucking movie, man. There's no
bottom
way.
of the uncanny valley. That's why the kids.
Oh no.
But the results are too human, and we're back at the
Cats. Who thought this was a good idea? Furries probably, but holy
bottom
crap,
of the
that's-
uncanny valley. That's why the kids from the Polar Express look so nightmarish, because they are following the exact movements of Tom Hanks. Yes, Tom Hanks, the adult man, did some motion capture for the small, nameless hero boy from the Polar Express. There's probably a reason we haven't made a fully motion capture cartoon in over 10 years. Because it looks weird. But I mean, that didn't stop one of these
Dude, Happy
movies from
Feet is
winning
good.
an Oscar.
Dude, Beowulf.
In animation. And before you ask, no, it wasn't Monster House or Tintin. It was Mars Needs Moms. Duh. Just like rotoscoping, motion Tintin. It was Mars Needs Moms.
Okay, back in the day, right? Movies came out on YouTube. Like, I swear it did. Because this movie came out, was posted on YouTube for like months before it got removed, and then it came out, and then I saw the release of it. Like, I saw it get released. I swear they used to use YouTube as a like a like a Q&A like marketing like thing to like see what the audience. I forgot. I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say. It's like a testing thing. Like what's it called when they release a movie in like a cinema? Only for that day for like critics and stuff. A bit like that. Um, it wasn't just this one. There was another movie as well that I watched on YouTube. It got uploaded on it, and then it got released after. But movies used to be on YouTube, man. It's crazy stuff.
Just like rotoscoping, motion capture can be used correctly. Computer-generated characters acting side by side real human actors look decent. It's not that jarring that these creatures who exist in a live-action world are moving just like live-action people. And let's
Yeah.
not forget all the VTubers who use motion capture technology to bring their jiggly assets to life. No matter what method someone uses to try.
Please tell me that he's a VTuber now and that's his model. That's hilarious.
And convince you that something else is alive, I think is incredibly cool. And I hope you think it's cool too. But maybe you don't think it's cool, and you don't care about animation, and you just put this video on in the background while you were cleaning. That's totally fine, I do that all the time. I just like learning about how all of my favorite animated pieces of media get created, because it's not always the same process. And I think it's great that new technology is allowing anyone to express themselves in whatever way possible. A person expressing themselves. Those are the three key words here. From the big studios that are just now pioneering new and interesting styles with digital animation, to the indie studios that have access to incredible technology, which allow anyone working from their bedrooms in their pajamas to create some truly masterpieces of animation. So, if you're the type of person that likes to trick people into thinking that something is alive, then you deserve all the respect in the world. In fact, here are some cool people that made the animation in this video possible. Hello, you just made it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm still trying to figure out this VTuber model, so I'm over-enunciating my words. The technology...
You can rig it differently, but that's crazy. That's actually, he got it commissioned. This is insane.
Behind this is beyond my comprehension. If you're still deciding what to get for the holidays, then great news. We have mystery boxes over on my website.
Hey man, it sells, man. It sells. Female VTubers sell, man.
So you can leave the deciding up to us. Now, if you'll excuse me,
maybe I should go. Maybe I should make one, and then have the duck as just me. I saw someone else do that where like they had like a female VTuber, but they were the like little pet that it was holding, and he was talking through that, which is a pretty cool idea. I might steal that. Maybe young that at some point.
I'm gonna go take a nap. Are you still watching?
Yeah, this was fun, man. This was fun.